length and the width, like we're still assessing all that, and I can explain all that.
Yeah.
But yeah, we don't have a lot of that information as of right now.
We're rolling. We're all good on our end. You guys all ready? Yeah.
Give me 1 second, sorry. Okay. Yeah, will you just like hold it so I can't see it? Yeah. Is that gonna mess up y'all's shot? Is it?
We're good. No, we're good. Right.
Okay, I apologize,
we've
guys.
Got just hero.
Okay.
Are we ready?
Yep.
Okay, can you say and spell your name and then the agency you're with?
Yes, my name is Sam Roberts, SAMROBERTS, and I'm here with the National Weather Service out of Morristown, Tennessee.
Perfect. Can you give us just a little bit of background? We know a tornado touched down around 5:30 here. What can you tell us so far?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we're doing here this morning is exactly what you said. We're here to assess the damage that occurred. We're here to put together the wind speed rating, path width, and length. So right now, we don't have a lot of those details because this is our first starting point. So as we go through the day and as we assess more points, we'll be able to put together more of that information. But some of the damage we observed here in Sunbright, you know, obviously several of the buildings have roof losses and wall collapses. So a lot of that will go into help determining the eventual rating later this afternoon once we compile all of that data.
Perfect.
Do you mind holding the mic
Oh,
a little
sorry.
So what do you know about, Morgan County E911 confirmed there were no fatalities. Do we know if anyone's injured? As far as structures, do we know how many structures have been impacted?
As far as we are aware, we are not aware of any injuries at this point. That'll be something you might have to find out from the local emergency manager just to confirm. But as of now, we are not aware of any injuries, thankfully. And as far as total structures impacted, we do not have that number at this time.
What are some of the things that you're looking at while you're conducting this survey?
Sure. So a lot of things that we're looking at are what we call damage indicators. So we have software that basically assigns wind speed ratings based on the damage that we have seen. So the software lets us pick what type of structure it is. You know, is it a residential home? Is it a residential business? You know, how well was the structure constructed? And then we assigned what type of damage that we have observed. You know, is it a full structure collapse? Is it partial structure collapse? Is it a roof that has been lifted off? Is it partial walls that have fallen over? There's all these different indicators that we go, and once we pick one of those, the software gives us an estimated wind speed rating based on what we are seeing, and then we use all of these points combined to come up with the eventual rating, and that'll come out later this afternoon.
What has been the process for you guys this morning? I know you said you have those instruments. What has been the process for you guys walking around and observing the damage?
Sure, yeah, basically it's just trying to find, we're trying to find the left outer edge of the tornado and the right outer edge based on the damage that we have observed, and that helps come up with the path width. So as of right now, we haven't actually calculated it, but just eyeballing it, here in the Sunbright area, it looks to be about 100 yards wide or so, but we'll have to configure that here shortly with some of the data we've come up with. But yeah, it's just, you know, picking the spots that seem like they have the worst damage and going through that software, you know, assigning the damage indicators, coming up with the wind speed ratings, taking photos to document what we've seen, making notes, because all of that will be eventually put out in the public information statement later this afternoon, the official release to the media and everything. And we're just using all of this information this morning to help compile that for later today.
Now, do you know if the tornado lifted back up and touched back down at all, or is that?
Most likely. We haven't been to other points yet, but just right up the road here behind the funeral home, it looks like that was the begin point, at least here in Sunbright. So after this, we're going to go further upstream, so further back to the west, and see if we can find any other touchdown points. Because as the storm moved off the Cumberland Plateau and came through Morgan County, it did look like it could have touched down previous to Sunbright. And then if we find that, we'll document it. But then from there, we'll keep heading east as the tornado it seemed to be fairly long track, and we do have some damage that is further downstream. So, but as of right now, this is the first point that we've seen, but it is most likely that there will be several other points associated with this tornado.
So you guys aren't aware yet if it continued into Scott?
Not yet. I mean, it's safe to probably assume that based on some of the damage reports we have, but we physically haven't visited that location yet. But based on the damage reports that we have and based on the radar data, it most likely did. We just haven't visited that location yet.
Can you talk about some of the things that have stood out to you as you've been looking at the damage? Can you describe some of the things that you've seen so far?
Sure. You know, we've seen several structures that have had fairly significant damage. Seen a few structures that have had complete roof removal, some exterior walls that have been collapsed. Haven't really noted anything that's been completely, you know, destroyed as far as, you know, all walls that have fallen or been removed. So again, you know, we use that in our rating system to help come up with the wind speeds. But I mean, it's fairly significant damage, but again, no structures that we've noted that have been completely destroyed, at least in this area.
And I know you guys are also looking at trees. Have you seen lots of downed trees, and what has that damage looked like?
We've seen a few trees here right in this immediate vicinity. Several trees snapped, both softwoods and hardwoods. Hardwood trees that have been snapped and uprooted give a little bit higher wind speed rating, but it's still consistent with what we've seen from the structural damage. It's all lining up fairly well, pretty consistent in some of the preliminary wind speed ratings that we're coming up with.
That's all I need.
Do you have the specific numbers for wind speed by chance? Or
It's all preliminary right now, so we're still assessing and collecting that data. So that'll come out later once we visit some more spots.
And I think my last question is, do you feel, I mean, there were no injuries, it's a 500-person town, do you feel that people were properly warned ahead of time?
Yeah, based on some of the early data, it looks like around 15 minutes of lead time for this tornado warning, which is really good. And you know, hopefully people were able to get the warning and take shelter as needed. We always like to tell people to have multiple ways to receive their warnings, you know, whether it's, you know, watching their local media, whether it's their smartphones getting notified through the wireless emergency alerts, but have several ways to get those warnings. So that way you do have the advance notice and are able to put your safety plan into place and take shelter. And yeah, thankfully so far, like you said, no injuries, which is a great thing. So really, really happy to hear that so far.
My last question, what does this storm look like in comparison to some of the other storms that you have assessed in East Tennessee?
Pretty similar. I mean, honestly, I've done a handful of surveys over the years, and you know, some can be different just depending on what type of structures you have involved. You know, did it go through a populated area? Is it more a rural area? And you know, when you're looking at rural areas, a lot of times all you have to go on is trees. You know, you don't have a lot of structures. But when you do have it move through a more populated area, you can more fine-tune some of those wind speed ratings because you have several structures to assess and assign damage rating to that. But nothing so far, you know, completely out of the ordinary. It looks pretty consistent with, you know, tornado damage that we've seen over the years.
I have a question. Are you, with the amount of damage that we're seeing here, are you really surprised that the numbers of casualties, like injuries, loss of life, does that surprise you, or is it, or you know, that there's a low number from what unofficially, but are you surprised by that, or?
Yes and no. No, because there was a lot of lead time for this warning. So in theory, people would have had time to take shelter and take precautions. But also yes, because it did move through a populated area and there was some pretty significant damage. So yes and no. But thankfully, like I said, we're not aware of any injuries at this time, and hopefully people were able to use that advanced lead time to put their safety plan into place and take shelter.
I was kind of walking around, I missed it. What was the advanced lead time for the people to be?
It was around 15 minutes.
Okay,
yeah.
Thank you. I was,
Yeah.
sorry. Be redundant.
We good? Okay, we're good. Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you so much.
Absolutely.
WVLT.
Sam Roberts. Yeah, nice to meet you.
This is our intrepid reporter here.
Hi, I'm
Hello.
Olivia Day. It's
Olivia
nice
Day.
to
Nice to meet you.
Well, I'm heading back.
Where you out of?
We work out of the Morristown office.
You're at this one. Right? No.
No, I think I'm this one.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
That one's potentially yes.
Around 9:30. Yeah, so we're kind of
There we go.
started. We got a lot of